Hi there, and welcome back to Word to Us, a podcast by a Black first gen female student for Black first gen female students. My name is Kyla-Journey and I'll be the host of this series. Last season, I focused on the taboo topics that weren't talked about within the Black community and households. This season, I want to branch out on my topics to create a community that centers Black women's voices and opinions. Although I created this podcast for Black first gen female students, that doesn't mean they're the only ones that can listen to this podcast. They were my original focus because I wanted a community that caters to the intersection of my identities, and I wanted to carve out a space catered to Black women created by one. The topics I plan on covering with this series can apply to any and everyone. Hi everyone, so welcome back to Word to Us, and today is going to be part 2 of a conversation that we had last week with Linda Solomon.
Hey, welcome. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for returning. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, in terms of what we talked about last week, it started with a general conversation about relationship boundaries and just understanding that having those in place keeps you a strong-minded individual. You're still independent, although you may be with someone, either a domestic partner, married, newly dating, courting, whatever the situation is, boundaries are important. And then we also talked about understanding the beginning signs of domestic abuse and violence, and understanding that at the core of those things that do happen, it's mostly a battle of the mind and also with self as well. And just understanding that self-esteem and how you regard yourself is very important to how you allow others to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
So today, in that similar fashion, but sort of in a tangential manner, I also wanted to talk about respect, either also in a relationship sense or also just with youth, or this is a multi-generational conversation, I'll say that. And just understanding that. But to wrap up the conversation regarding relationships, I personally think that there are a lot of buzzwords floating around on the internet, and I just wanted to give them some definition, and then Linda, just have your opinion and your thoughts on them as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is obsession, which there is a movie that came out called Obsession. I did go see it. It was very interesting. And if you have anyone in your life and you're like, oh, they're bare, please run far, far away, because no one should make that wish in that case. Anyway, obsession is defined as a state in which someone thinks about someone or something constantly or frequently, especially in a way that is not normal. And this is from the Britannica Dictionary. Limerence is the second phrase, and this is the mental state of being madly in love or intensely infatuated when reciprocation of the feeling is uncertain. This was coined by an American psychologist, Dorothy Tenov, out of her work in the 1960s when she interviewed over 500 people on the topic of love. And the last topic, or the last idea, is toxic attachment, which I think is any bond that you form with someone due to shared trauma or traumatic experiences. And also codependency. And codependency is defined as a dysfunctional relationship dynamic in which one person assumes the role of the giver, sacrificing their own needs and well-being for the sake of the other, who would be defined as the taker. And that is from Psychology Today.
Okay. It's interesting that all of these, if you think about it, go back to the core of who an individual is, right, and how they see themselves. For just, I think it's an example. These are examples of people who have, what is it, like insecurity issues, like don't have a good sense of who they are, and thus they grab onto something in an unhealthy way. Obsession, limerence, just the toxic attachments. They're really not about the person that they selected. It's about them. It's about it's the like a jealous person. It's about their experiences and how they came to believe whatever they believe, right? And they're putting this on their partner. But it's not about the the partner necessarily. It's what someone brings to a relationship, how one sees himself or herself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And oftentimes, um, people who are obsessed or have this tendency to have toxic attachments, um, they typically are signs. You just have to know what to look for, and you have to know how to move accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
because these are not characteristics that typically go away unless the person gets some um, support,
Mm-hmm.
professional support.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's all has to do with the mental, where someone is emotionally and mentally.
This is true. And I think another thing too is if you are going into a relationship and you see yourself like how do I want to word this? I think a lot of the times when people are getting into a relationship and they haven't necessarily done not soul searching, but they haven't found themselves and they're not confident in who they are, they try to fill the gaps that they're seeing in themselves with their partner, but then that's sort of putting them above yourself, which can cause you to have less regard for yourself and for your actions, and then you're more likely to let some things slide. But I think another thing too is when you get so attached to a person that it becomes this idea of obsession or limerence or even having toxic attachment. That's not to say you can't be someone who's had a traumatic past or they've had traumatic experiences prior to you, but if they aren't getting the proper support and help, like you said, to understand and process and deal with what they went through, and they are carrying that into the relationship, that could then turn into something that you two are leaning on each other for when you should be having someone who would be a third opinion or an unbiased source in the situation too.
Right, absolutely. And the codependency is something that's really prevalent that I think people can understand, just because it's easier to identify in some cases. Like if you put the needs of someone else above your own, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's not healthy. And in all of these cases, even with someone who's obsessed, well, with all of these, they can be very, very serious,
Mm-hmm.
extremely serious. Um, but again, there are signs, and I think it's important for people who are in these relationships or feel like a relationship is going in that direction, need to really understand that we cannot change anyone. Love doesn't change a person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Love
Mm-hmm.
alone, you care about this person, or you're going to do
Mm-hmm.
this to demonstrate to him or her that you're trustworthy. It's not even about you, it's about them, it's about their baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to recognize that it doesn't make up, if somebody is obsessed, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. It means that they need help.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving accordingly um, is actually an act of self awareness, an act of kindness on your behalf,
Mm-hmm.
because the person needs help.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes people will stay in relationships thinking, oh, I can change that person,
Mm-mm.
but, you only person you can change is yourself. And again, typically people who tend to be in codependent relationships or have toxic attachments. This is deep rooted stuff. This is not something that just developed overnight or over a weekend. This is
Mm-hmm.
deep seated baggage
Mm-hmm.
that needs attention.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they're not even aware that they're caught in that cycle of whatever we would call it.
Exactly. And I think something else too that's important, like you said, getting the support and just understanding where you're coming from. Relationships are just so complicated.
They can be. But again, it's being intentional and being intentional and deliberate about the decisions that you make when you're in a relationship helps to mitigate some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you both have a clear understanding of what's important to you, what your values are, what's important to you, what's not. Like if you're clear about that stuff, those issues, I shouldn't say stuff because,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're clear about those things early on, then you're much more likely to connect with someone in a way that's meaningful and more genuine, you know? Like,
100%.
yeah.
I also think not even just romantic relationships, but in friendships as well. Like sometimes you can go through something and then someone happens to be in your life around that same time and they are the person who gets you through that.
Mm-hmm.
But that shouldn't be the basis of, like why they're your friend, if that makes sense. Like, they're a good
Absolutely.
person, obviously, because they help you get through something that was traumatic or something that may have changed who you are fundamentally as a person, but there's more to friendships than just the traumas of life. Like there's also the simple things, there's the joys. Can you find yourself, or excuse me, can you see yourself with this person and just, relaxing, like you don't have anything to do? If you had to run errands and you were like, oh, can I just have your company, like can
Mm-hmm.
you see them going through life with you in that way, and not just, can you be here when things are really really bad, because I know you're really good at doing that.
Right, right. It's interesting. This makes me think about the importance of self-reflection, understanding who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what your needs are, and just how you respond and why you respond in the ways that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you should not sacrifice yourself because someone did a favor for you or was supportive of you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sacrifice yourself for that. Um, and it's, those boundaries can become mashed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he or she was there for me, so I feel kind of compelled or feel responsible. And it's okay to appreciate what someone has done for you,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to have clear boundaries. You don't, if you owe it or something, you buy him a gift. You don't sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You
Exactly.
just, that's not something that's healthy, nor does it lead to anything that's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing who you are, knowing what's important to you, knowing, like, should have a list of things that are important to you. You should have some non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
You treat people how you want to be treated, knowingly or unknowingly,
This is true.
right? And so you have to be clear about the boundaries that are important to you, so you know when to step back or when it's okay to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And in self-reflection, you also have to understand that it's going to be uncomfortable, especially when you have to deal with things that you may not have noticed might be a trait that you may not necessarily like about yourself, but sometimes you just pick up things that have gotten you through certain seasons of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you can also drop them, because just as quickly as you can learn something, it takes a little bit more time and effort to unlearn it, because at that point it's become a habit.
Right.
But after 21 days, like now it's concrete as a habit, but you can also unlearn something in 21 days.
Right.
So taking the time to think about why you react a specific way in situations, why you speak the way you do, why certain things bother you the way that they do. If you really like sit, and yes, it's going to be uncomfortable and you might feel some feelings and you're like, oh, I don't like feeling angry. I don't like feeling sad. I don't like having to, like sit with my emotions. Doing that anyway is going to make you overall a better person and just make you understand things a lot more.
Right.
And also, you don't have to just sit there with them. You can also write it down. You can process them in a different way. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you go for a walk or you exercise, just, you don't literally have to sit with your emotions unless that's the best way that you process, but
Mm-hmm.
just taking that time to be by yourself and have internal dialogue with yourself will just overall make you a better person in your relationship with yourself and also with other people as well.
Absolutely. Because what happens a lot of times is you get in a relationship with someone and you're kind of shooting from the hip,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we talked about this a bit last time, but
Mm-hmm.
people don't generally think about, like, the values and the goals, the values that are important to them in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They're non-negotiables or they're negotiables. People don't, like, they may kind of have an idea in their head, but they're not, like, they should be written down. They should be really clear because we all carry something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the decisions that we make are based on something. And we need to know the basis for our decisions, even the type of person that we are attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't just come out of nowhere.
This is
People
true.
generally have a type, and like like where did that come from? And and oftentimes it's not even
Mm-hmm.
a conscious decision. But that's a good example um, that our actions are driven by our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are attracted to a certain type, that's where is that belief coming from? What emotion or emotions are attached to that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, so the self awareness, and it could be you can do those things that you mentioned. You can get into small circles with your friends that you trust,
Mm-hmm.
um, and whose judgment you value, and just have conversations like because you might not recognize some of the things that you do
Exactly.
because it's just what you do, what you've been doing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So being in groups where people can just say, you can ask people, what four words would you use to describe me and why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simple, you might be surprised. Like we do what we do because we have been socialized to do it. We don't, you
Exactly.
know. So we might not see ourselves as clearly as we think.
This is true. This is actually really true. I think, yeah, honestly, before you get in a relationship, please just reflect on yourself. Think about, what is this relationship doing for me? Is there anything I'm relying on my partner to do for me that I can actually do for myself? Now, before you take that and run with it, let me just say this. I'm not saying you can't depend on your partner for certain things, but if it's something within yourself, like you as an individual, you have the power, the time, the resources to seek external support and get help and work on it, do that. But if it's something else that like your partner is good at that you may not necessarily be good at, that's also fine. Like me, video games, that's not my thing. That's not my jam. Devin, that's his jam. That's not something, oh my gosh, I need to go to therapy so I can learn how to play video games so that me and my partner can bond.
Mhm.
Again, it's good to have things that you are good at and they're also good at, because your differences can also be your strengths. And
Absolutely.
it's the same thing with your mindset and how you go into scenarios and situations, unless it is a trauma response, which we have covered. So
Hmm.
just everything is with nuance. And I feel like in this day and age, when people want a lot of articles or whatever they're reading or whatever they're listening to get right to the point, I think it's important to have patience and understand that certain things will land and stick and other things will not.
That's right.
And sometimes you have to listen to something a couple times, or it just might not be something that applies to you, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it wasn't for you.
Hmm. That's right. I absolutely agree with you. Um, it's important to be aware
Mm-hmm.
and know that as you said, some things are just for a season, and some people can be good friends and not be intimate friends. It's okay.
Exactly.
It's like I think you just have to be open to seeing what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people will show you who they are. We just have to decide whether we want to listen to it or not. If we want to see
Mm-hmm.
and hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, relationships can be challenging. There's no doubt about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that you can do to make relationships less challenging
Mm-hmm.
is to talk, to communicate, to
Yes.
get to know who your partner is.
Yes.
Because listen,
Yes.
when you know someone's story,
Mm-hmm.
it helps. It should give you insight into what motivates them,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important to know what motivates um, the person that you're spending time with.
Yes.
You just want to know who the person is,
Exactly.
and so communicating, talking about whatever, talk about everything, talk about like what is their idea of a relationship? Where did that come from? Like
Exactly.
what are their non-negotiables?
Mm-hmm. And these are also fundamental things that I think are important in the beginning of a relationship, because a lot of people are like, oh, but like we're just starting out, I don't, I'm not looking for anything too serious. And I'm like, okay, but you are still spending a lot of time with them. And I think understanding what may or may not come up in the future will save you some heartache and also some tough conversations, because it's like, oh, well, we talked about this, we discussed what we do want to do, what we don't want to do, expectations, standards, things like that. Which, wait, I feel like you have something to say.
Well, no, I was thinking, I was thinking about this limericks. When you meet someone, when you first meet someone, if you're attracted to them, like your mind can go in a million different
This
places.
is
Like
true.
you focus only on that person. If they're gonna call, when, like how long you've been. People can spend hours on the phone. That's part of the whole cycle of relationships. It's part of the cycle. So you have to understand there is a cycle. And if
100%.
and if you stay stuck in one area too long, it might not be healthy. Just know that whole there is a cycle that you should be aware of and know where you are in that cycle.
This is true. And I think also in terms of thinking about limerence, a lot of people too, like they're throwing around the term like honeymoon phase. And I'm like, you guys, you're making my head hurt, because if this is someone that you are dating intentionally and you actually are dating seriously and you're someone who is considering marriage, why do you think the honeymoon phase ends? Like, obviously, you get comfortable, you may get into your life routines and things, but I still think including like spontaneity or still having those romantic gestures that the person was doing in the beginning of the relationship to get your attention, to show you that they really care. If they carry that throughout the relationship, the honeymoon phase never ends.
Right.
So, don't
Well,
get me started.
Well, listen, again, when you think, for me, I think that a lot of this boils down to decisions, right? If you are with someone who shares, where you have common goals, where you have shared values, and you decide that you want to be serious with this person, then you have to, as I said last week, there's no we if there's no agreement.
Exactly.
And so if you don't have it, you need to make sure you have an agreement that's clear with whoever you choose to be with. Otherwise, don't. It's not a we. You're thinking you're in a relationship, and he's thinking, ooh, like like I'm a free agent. You don't know if there's no agreement. So you just want to be. And it's not about forcing anyone to do anything, right? It's about recognizing again your values, what's important to you, your negotiables, your non-negotiables, and then understanding those of your partner as well, because true partnership is, understanding those things that are important to each other. It's not a one-way street, and many people have grown up not seeing healthy relationships, so they really don't know. So you get two people who really don't know. So you want to figure it out pretty quickly, and that means communicating with each other.
Exactly.
Non-judgmentally. You can agree to disagree on something. It's okay.
Exactly. Wow. You guys, that's it. That's the end of the episode. Just communicate. We're done. That's all I got. Truly. And on that note too, in terms of the other thing that I wanted to talk about today, communication, agreeing to disagree, understanding each other, having conversations. One word comes to mind. As Aretha Franklin said, respect. RESPECT.
There you go.
And I also, for those of you who don't know, Linda also has a background in being a teacher. She's a retired teacher, and my parents both work in BPS. The stories that I hear from these Boston public schools, as someone who graduated from BPS too, and my second job after the first program I went through, I was like, oh, I can be a camp counselor. Like, I just, it's basically babysitting. You guys, you think that. And then you get your job as a camp counselor and you're like, oh, there's so much more I was not ready for. But I think the greatest and yet simultaneously most challenging job I had, I was I was a senior camp counselor at the YMCA in Roxbury. And originally, I was a camp counselor at Sportsman's Tennis for about 3 years. So I was like, oh, like I've been here for a while. Let me see if there's anyone else hiring. So I went to the YMCA. My dad knew the person who was in charge of the program, and she was like, oh, yeah, like we're looking for counselors. Like, we'd love to have your daughter, especially if she's anything like you. I was like, oh, stop. Y'all gassing me up. You don't even know me yet. So I applied, I got it, and I was like, okay, cool. Let's run it. Originally, I started out with the 9 and 10-year-olds. I said, oh, this is sweet. Yeah, we're good to go. Boom. Get like 3 weeks into the program. Kiara goes, so Kyla, we're actually going to move you to 11 plus. I beg your finest pardon? You're putting me where? And for context, the 11 plus group is the oldest group at the camp. So I think the youngest you can start is either 4 or 5. So like pretty much like when you can start school is when you can start the program.
Okay.
And they go all the way up till, I want to say 12. Like as long as you don't turn 13 in the middle of the program, I think you can stay. But I literally can't remember because it was about 3 summers ago. But those kids gave me a run for my money. And I think it was only because at first I was like, oh my God, I'm not prepared. No, wait. I was like, you guys, hold on. Wait, hold on. But the thing it boiled down to was literally, I told them, I said, listen, you guys have obviously been here longer than I have. I'm not going to coddle you. I like, as much as I was like, oh, being a camp counselor is babysitting, you guys are old enough where I literally don't have to babysit you. I just need you all to understand, like, as long as you respect that, I'm literally here to do my job, which is to take care of you guys, make sure you're doing what you need to do, and you're following the rules of the program. You're not endangering yourself or the people around you. We're cool. And I just literally, I said, I'll give respect, or excuse me, you give respect, you'll get respect. And I think coming from someone who is talking to an older Black woman, I think that the generational translation of respect has sort of shifted a little bit, especially because I feel like a lot of people from my generation are like, oh, well, just because you're older doesn't mean I'm automatically going to respect you. And from my perspective, I don't think we mean it in a disrespectful way. It's just genuinely there are some people who are older and assume that because we're younger, we don't know anything or we don't know what we're talking about at all, when that's not the case.
Right. That's definitely not the case. And I think part of the disconnect is because there are not many opportunities for intergenerational conversation. Older people typically have lived and have lived experiences that will be valuable to young people, and vice versa. Like I don't like there need to be spaces where we are having intergenerational conversations because young times have changed.
Oh, yes.
Times have changed, and young people. You're right. Many of them think, oh, just because of your age, I don't have to. It would be nice if they did, but we have to give them a reason to understand why that's important. And having more opportunities for intergenerational conversations, and for there to be mutual respect. That young people have so much to learn, can learn so much from older people. And older people can learn from this younger generation because it's a different time. You walk out of your house, things are not the same. And so it should be a reciprocal thing going on here. And unfortunately, it's not really happening. And like, where would it happen? In churches, if you go to church, younger people are not even really going to church to where they were before. But not only younger people, there are a lot of people who are kind of disillusioned. But so if you don't talk about that in your home, if you haven't experienced that, then you can understand where the confusion would come in, where younger people just don't have that. They're just a different breed. And not to say that it's bad, but times have changed, and so we have to keep up with each other and respect each other, because life would be much more meaningful for everyone involved.
Exactly.
If we were in community representing. There's this term called Ubuntu. It means I am because you are. And that's, sort of what we should be trying to promote here. Like, there's no one in the community that's that has no value. Everyone brings value. Everyone's needed for the gifts that they bring, and everyone has gifts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's just honestly so much to get into. And before we do, we're just going to go to a really quick break. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Word to Us, amplifying Black women's voices on WBCA 102.9, Boston's community radio station.
Looking out across the night, the city winks a sleepless eye. Yeah, I'd always shake my window, sweet seducing sighs. Get me out into the nighttime, for walls won't hold me tonight. If this town is just an apple, then let me take a bite. If they say why?
Hi there, and welcome back to Word to Us, amplifying Black women's voices on WBCA 102.9, Boston's community radio station. And right before the break, I was talking to Linda. Well, I was explaining to Linda my experience with young adults and the importance of respect. And Linda brought her perspective on how more multi-generational conversations can create community with either people from my generation or younger, people from the middle generations, and also people from Linda's generation and older.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We really do need to, as a community, make sure that we are providing safe spaces for people to come together and be in community. It is it's not just a luxury or something that it's not just a feel-good activity. It's something that we really need to just promote culture, promote a collective sense of caring. You know, there are a lot of older there are a lot of older people sitting at home alone and lonely.
This is true.
And the same is true for young people now, because there are a lot of young people who are feeling alone in a crowd. Like they can be in a crowd and still feel alone and isolated.
Yes.
And that's something that doing something about that is within our control. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You know, you can have just community circles, and they are happening around the city. But you know, it might be an invitation for people to even host just a community circle with just your close friends. Just talk about what are the things that are important to you and why. What is something that makes your life, that would make your life feel meaningful? You know, just having conversations, getting to know people beyond a superficial level.
And I think a lot of people my age, I was even talking with Mira about this, who was another guest on a previous episode, but I was saying I think a lot of people when they graduate from college, because we're sort of in like a middle tier of life, like you're like, yes, you're an adult, but you're not like an adult, like you don't have a 401k and, you know, like job benefits and stuff. But you have been living on your own. But I think a lot of people when they graduate college, when they're like, oh, I miss it. I don't think they miss colleges and like going to class, having to wake up early, going to the dining halls. I think they miss community.
Absolutely.
And I think they miss a walkable community, because where I go to school, like UMass Amherst, yes, it's 2 hours. What is it? West. We're going to go with West. But it's quite, to me, coming from Boston, where I can walk to the bus in 15 minutes and then get to the city in 20, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
They have public transportation and it does run pretty frequently. But even still, it's like we're driving past farms and fields to get to the mall. Like, we're quite literally, this is not Metropolis. This is what is this? This
familiar.
is Smallville. That's what this is. So I think with that, like, understanding, even though, like, yes, young people, it's like, oh, well, young people are always on their phone. I'm like, you can be on your phone literally just scrolling on social media or anything like that. I think, and obviously I'm guilty of it because, yes, I do have social media, but I think a lot of the times we're intaking so much information and we're seeing so much going on in other people's lives, it makes us mourn certain experiences that we might not even have because that's just not what we're destined to have, you know? But I think understanding that and trying to find, you know, a community, like that's why a lot of people, when they start gaming, they'll, you know, be in chat rooms and stuff and they'll talk to the people that they're gaming with, and that is their form of community. And there are ways to find community online, but there are also some crazy people online. So you just really,
Absolutely.
you have to be careful.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And you know, it's okay to have communities online, but again, you don't know who you're talking. You really don't know who you're talking
Genuinely.
to. You could be looking at a picture that they're posting every time, and it could be someone else. So it's an artificial sort of simulation of community. But community is invaluable. You know, when I think about students in particular, research clearly demonstrates that students do better, learn more. It's a more efficient way to learn. It's when you're in study groups, for example. You know, but community in general, you know, people heal faster in communities. Sometimes being in a community is more effective than medication. So I don't think that I can express the importance of being in community with people who have shared values, who are supportive, for sure. That's what gangs are, right? Gangs are their little isolated communities.
Yes, yes.
And people looking for community, and it's unfortunate that for many people, the only community they can find is a gang because, but you know, schools should offer safe communities, which they seldom do. You know, you see cliques,
This is true.
but being in college is a nice opportunity for you to have meaningful, like I used to spend my summers in Amherst. I was an administrator in the Upper Bound program.
Oh, yeah.
And so we would be in Amherst in the summers. And so I understand that it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
But
and
yeah.
especially in the summer, like when you think about it, I think we jumped the population upwards somewhere between like probably 5 and 9,000. Now imagine all of that just leaving during the summer. So yeah, literally middle of nowhere. But yeah, go ahead.
But you know, the whole college thing, it really is people trying to find. Everyone wants to feel connected and contributing, right? There's 3 C's: want to feel connected, contributing, and capable. And that's like the foundation. People want to, and so you just want to make sure that you're in a community that's healthy, that's helpful, that's supportive. And if you don't have one, you can create one. It can start with a small group. People will come. You don't even have to advertise. When you have caring, safe spaces where people can come, you don't have to promote. It's not by promotion. They won't come by they'll come by attraction. They'll hear about it and they will be interested and they'll come. And it's okay to create those spaces because if they're not happening, you know, everybody bring something and let's have a chat. Let's talk about the things that are important to us. So let's talk about graduating and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And what does it look like to be a first-generation college-bound student, right? What does it look like to have the fear of having to negotiate in this white world structure, being someone of color? Or, you know, the conversation could be anything, but just talking in a community, in a safe space, is invaluable.
Yes, and this is also something that my dad tells me, and that I also told. I always call them my kids. I'll be like my kids when I was at camp, but most of the time when you have a question, somebody else in the room most likely has the same question.
Absolutely.
They just didn't raise their hand first. So even if and also I'm a firm believer in there's no such thing as a dumb question. Comma, if you're someone who's paying attention to what the person is saying. Because sometimes you have to explain something to someone in a specific way that you may not have said initially, but then upon saying it either a second time or a third time in a different way, it clicks and makes sense, like just like that. So I think with you talking about community conversations. Like I feel like a lot of people, even including first gen students, or even if you're not a first gen student and you're just going to college and you're graduating, a lot of us are like, okay, so what the heck do we do now? Like,
Right.
we have a degree. In order to get into the field, we need to have experience. No one's hiring me so I can get that experience to then move up.
Right.
So what do I do in the meantime? Do I go back to the job I was doing during the summers when I went home? Do I try and find an unpaid internship? But it's an unpaid internship, so how do I pay my bills because I'm not in school anymore, so I can't get scholarship? You know, it's just,
It's a lot.
yeah,
It's a lot. And it's not, and a lot of times people will do that to, in isolation because they don't want to talk about it because they don't know what they're going to do.
exactly.
And it's okay not to have the answers. You're stepping into a chapter of your life that's new, that's different. And so why not talk about that with your friends out loud? And, you might form a collective or there's so many things that you can do together, put your head together and come up with it because it is a stage in life that people go through. And there are apprehensions associated with it, there's no doubt. So why go it alone? Have a conversation about it. See what you can strategize. Someone might have. Typically, what happens in groups is that you would get a bunch of good ideas, and then you can run with some of them or not. But you have a choice. But at least you're not doing it alone. You're not going through it alone.
The biggest part of it is literally just finding other people or speaking out loud and finding other people that are also having similar experiences.
Right.
Because obviously, it's everybody's first time doing life. We all know that.
That's right.
But there are some people who started life earlier than you, so you can talk to them and see what they did. Obviously, you take that with a grain of salt because you're a different person with different experiences. You were raised differently. You may come from different background. Blah, 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 blah. Again, nuance. That's everyone's word of the day today. Nuance and communication.
That's right.
And respect.
And
That's
respect.
3.
There you go.
But with that being said, you have to, if you really truly want to understand, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me see if I can find someone else who does. Again, community. You can only find that if you say something, because you may say something to someone, they may not have the answer, but they may know someone that might have the answer.
Right.
So now you're 2 connections deep and you're extending your network. And this reminds me of, so I've been to the Museum of Science more times probably than I've been alive, and I'm relatively young. But there's this, if you go to, I forget which floor it's on, I think it's either the 2nd or the 3rd, but it's the exhibit where they talk about like the human body and how you get allergies and stuff like that. But there's this exhibit that talks about how extended your network is as an individual, because it's like you're you, and then you go to school. So even at 5, you have a network because you're an individual that attends either preschool then school. Then your classmates, and your teachers, the staff in the school. So that's already 3 tiers, and then it just keeps building out as you get older and older. Obviously, you're not going to remember every single person you've ever run into, but if you have a long enough conversation with them, you'll start to figure out whether or not you know someone from a specific place. But at the end of the day, it all just comes down to being brave enough to ask the question you may think is dumb, or it's a question you think you may be the only person who has that question, and still just going with it.
Right. I agree. And you're right. Brave enough to step out of the box. Brave enough to ask a question or questions, or to question what you see. Because, again, we've been socialized. So, and so it can be uncomfortable to ask questions and to hear answers that may kind of go against with your belief system. But we have one life. We don't get a do-over.
Nope.
This is not a dress rehearsal.
This is the real first and final act.
That's right. And so be true to yourself. Ask questions, explore. Stay, you want to be safe, but you want to be your best self, and be true to yourself, and you want to be respected, and you want people to respect you.
Exactly.
And as you said, it's about communicating. It's about knowing who you are, right? What motivates you to get up every morning, and motivate you to actually just understanding what motivates you, yeah, what's important to you, because it when you know yourself first, know thyself, and then you're able to have more meaningful relationships with other people.
100%. Thank you, Linda, for your time and also your
Absolutely.
words with these last few minutes, other than obviously the wisdom you have bestowed unto me today. Are there any other things that you think would be important for someone listening to know? Or if you could boil it down to just a couple of sentences, what do you think some of the main or key takeaways from our conversation today would be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say, first and foremost, self-awareness is a revolutionary act. Know yourself, know what motivates you, know why you make the decisions that you make. Understand why things are important to you, what's important to you and why, like what your triggers are, right? Understand yourself. And then know that you cannot change anyone. You can, and it doesn't even matter what happens to you necessarily. What really matters is how you respond to what happens. And that boils down to a choice, right? So you want to, if you want to have a meaningful, healthy life, I think it first starts with you being grateful and having an appreciation for the things that you do have and the people that are around you, and knowing that you always have an opportunity to see things in multiple ways, right? There's not just one side to a story. But first and foremost, I would say is be true to yourself, so you can thus have meaningful and important relationships with other people.
I 100% agree. And I think today's conversation and also last week's was just a great example of how you can build community and also have multi-generational conversations where you're taking different experiences, different ideas, different perspectives, and putting them together and understanding that even though you may come from these two what may seem to be very different backgrounds, at the end of the day, when you boil it down, you're going to have something in common with someone, with anyone who you talk to, rather. But with that, thank you, Linda, and thank you, listeners, for listening to this conversation, opening your mind to things you may not have considered before, and for giving me and Linda your time as well. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and remember that this is a word to us. Share it when you feel ready, and let me know if there's anything you want to hear from me or any of my guests. Peace and love, Kyla-Journey.
I'ma tell you this one time.